Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are finally taking a look at the Pittsburgh Regional Championships that happened this past weekend. Match number one, round number one. We already have a very exciting matchup. Michael Groshans versus Stefan Mott. These are the two teams that won the two regional championships, Frankfurt and Monterey last weekend. Michael Groshans bringing Emmanuel Briganti's Ursaluna, Sneasler, Grassy Seed Acrobatics team, and Stefan Mott bringing his own Scyther team. But Michael Groshans here has the Alola Ninetales, the Blood Moon, Ursaluna, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Goldengo, and Sneasler. Alola Ninetales here sets the snow with Snow Warning, and Blizzard becomes fully accurate. Icy Wind, Disable, and Protect with the Focus Sash and Terra Ghost. Blood Moon Ursaluna with that Terra Electric does great defensive work into Goldengos. Leftovers, Mind's Eye, Blood Moon, Earth Power, Yawn, and Protect. A quite bulky Blood Moon Ursaluna with some good disruption in that Yawn. Incineroar here with the Terra Ghost Citrus Berry. Overall pretty standard with Intimidate, Flare Blitz, Knockoff, Parting Shot, and Fake Out. Rillaboom as well, relatively normal with the Terrafire, Assault Vest, Grassy Surge, Grassy Glide, Woodhammer, High Horsepower, and Fake Out. Goldengo here with the defensive Water, Terra, Life Orb, Good as Gold, Make It Rain, Shadow Ball, Nasty Plot, and Protect. And then that that more interesting Sneasler with the Terraflying, Acrobatics, Grassy Seed, Unbird, a lot of nice synergies there, and then Close Combat, Swords Dance, and Protect. So pretty aggressive. The fun synergies with the Rillaboom recovering Ursaluna and giving Sneasler a boost. On the other side though, Stefan Mott, the Monterey winning team, Goldengo, Incineroar, Scyther, Dondozo, Alola Ninetales, and Garganacl. Goldengo with the Terra Steel, Choice Scarf, Good as Gold, Make It Rain, Shadow Ball, Trick, and Power Gem. Terra Steel for some more Make It Rain damage, and Trick to lock opposing Pokemon into whatever their first move is with Choice Scarf. Incineroar here, a little bit different than usual with the Terra Bug, Assault Vest, Intimidate, Flare Blitz, Knockoff, Fake Out, and U-Turn. A little bit more aggressive, going to be able to invest in those speed and attack sets more since you have the defensive stat boost with the Assault Vest. Scyther here with the Eviolite, Terra Steel, Technician, Dual Wing Beat, Close Combat, U-Turn, and Protect. I'm super interested to see how this goes. Dondozo with the Terra Poison, Leftovers, Unaware, Wave Crash, Yawn, Fisher, and Protect. A very, very bulky Pokemon with some good disruption and some good damage, very similar to that Ursaluna on the other side. Another Ninetales here, also with Snow Warning, but this is Terra Ice for some more damage. Focus Sash, Blizzard, Freeze Dry, Protect, and Auroraville, and then Garganacl rounds things out with Terraflying, Purifying Salt, Moronga Berry, which boosts special defense when hit by a special move, Salt Cure, Stealth Rock, Recover, and Protect. So for Stefan Mott, this is a much more defensive team overall. I'm super interested to see how this Scyther works, if we even get to see it. On the other side, for Emmanuel Briganti's team, piloted by Michael Groshans, it is very, very aggressive. It does have some good defensive pivot options. It does have some good regeneration on that Blood Moon Ursaluna. However, Sneasler with that Acrobatics, the damage on Acrobatics getting doubled by Grassy Seed, a defense boost on that Sneasler from the Grassy Seed, Terra Flying to boost the flying type damage even more, and then Unburden to double its speed can be super aggressive. Stefan Mott here though, we do see the Garganacl leading the way with the Incineroar, and Michael Groshans gets to bring out Rillaboom and Sneasler off the bat. Incineroar here, really good pick on going first for Stefan Mott. The Rillaboom and the Sneasler get a -1 to their attack stats. Both players do have access to Fake Out. Notably, Rillaboom is usually faster than Incineroar, so if you are Stefan Mott, that is something you need to be a little bit wary of. But this Garganacl does not really like to be in this spot. Both High Horsepower and Close Combat can do a ton of damage into it, and it does have that Moronga Berry to boost special defense. Its physical defense is already pretty stellar, so seeing Assault Gear here wouldn't be too surprising if we do see a Terra out of it, but we don't see a Terrestrialization. Incineroar just going for the Fake Out into the Rillaboom here, so it does not get to move, and Sneasler just goes for the Swords Dance, not going for the aggressive option on this turn. Stefan Mott not going for a defensive Terra on either of his Pokemon. Assault Cure comes through onto the Rillaboom. This is going to be doing pretty good damage turn over turn. It's going to be a little bit mitigated by the Grassy Terrain, but Assault Cure is going to be doing a little bit more damage than Grassy Terrain recovers. Incineroar with that Fake Out already feeling pretty good. We do have that Swords Dance from Sneasler that puts it at +1 after the Intimidate knocked it down a bit, so it's not going to be the scariest thing in the world, but it can still pump out quite a bit of damage. It does already have that Unburden triggered, so any physical damage is not going to be doing quite enough, or quite as much to it, and notably though, its special bulk is not all that great. That said, really Stefan Mott has physical threats on the field with Incineroar, and then Garganacl with that Salt Cure doing turn over turn damage. If you're Michael Groshans, you're still not in the worst spot. Your Rillaboom didn't get to move, and you are hit by Salt Cure, but you are up against two Pokemon that really don't want to deal with either High Horsepower from the Rillaboom or Close Combat from your Sneasler. But instead of playing this aggressively, Michael Groshans goes for the pivot on the Rillaboom, wanting to get rid of that Salt Cure, and brings his own Incineroar in. So Fake Out pressure reapplied. That means we can get some, more damage out, not quite as much damage going into Michael Groshans here. Are we going to see a swap from Stefan Mott, though? It's going to be the Protect from the Garganacl. Playing a little bit more defensively from Stefan, I think this is smart. But for Michael Groshans, not having the pressure applied here, Close Combat is going into Protect. Instead of being able to, swap, split damage evenly, you're not really going to get any damage out, and Stefan Mott does get to go for a Flare Blitz into the opposing Incineroar. Doesn't do all that much damage, but gets at least a little bit of chip. Now, Michael Groshans does have Fake Out active. Notably, I don't think there is a phenomenal target for Fake Out here. Stefan Mott, I think, is still in a position to swap out either Pokemon. Notably, Incineroar can go for U-turn here, but it cannot go for Protect. So that slot is going to be able to get hit by any damage that Micro Groshans wants to throw at it. Scarganackle has already gone for the Protect here, probably not going for it again, and Stefan Mott is really not in a better position with the Scarganackle anyways. So we could see it swap out. We actually see the Incineroar go ahead and swap out here, not even going for the U-turn, and Goldengo makes its way onto the battlefield. Now, it is immune to close combat, but it takes a lot of damage from Flare Blitz and Knockoff. Shouldn't worry all that much about acrobatics, but it can still do quite a bit of work. Dondozo does make its way onto the battlefield now, though, and I'm interested to see just how tanky this Pokemon is. This is a +1 close combat into it, only does about a third of Dondozo's health, and that does drop Sneaser's defenses. What is the Incineroar going to go for here? It's going to be Flare Blitz, but it's into the Dondozo, so takes Dondozo down to about half HP, but this Goldengo is still on the field and feeling really, really good. It shouldn't go down to even a +1 acrobatics. It is, it has some decent defenses, and Steel is a phenomenal typing. Make It Rain here could do a lot of work. It doesn't do great into Incineroar. Power Gem is still certainly an option for it, but Make It Rain will do a ton into Sneasler, and right now, honestly, this Dondozo, after the Grassy Terrain recovery and leftovers, should still be able to survive whatever the Sneasler Incineroar duo throws at it, and can throw a Wave Crash into the Incineroar and do a ton of damage as well. So while Goldengo is under a decent amount of threat, Dondozo should be able to do plenty of work as well. It might be a little bit of a trade here for Stefan Mott, losing the Goldengo, but you get to KO 2 Pokemon on Micro Groshan's side, one of them being that really powerful Sneasler, and then you have that Garganackle in the back that is going to be really hard to deal with overall for the rest of Micro Groshan's team. Maybe not that Rillaboom, but you have Incineroar to check that as well. For Micro Groshans, you need to try to take out this Goldengo here. The Dondozo is still certainly a threat. You don't want to get yawned. You do have your own Goldengo, so being able to potentially be immune to yawns with Goda's Gold could be relatively big. We see the Rillaboom make its way onto the battlefield now. Not resetting the grassy terrain, but it is going to be going down here in a couple of turns. Close Combat comes out into the Dondozo. What are we going to see for these attacks? Again, Power Gem from the Goldengo could be pretty big, but it is just going to be that Make It Rain. Sneasler does go down, that second Close Combat doing, lowering its defenses even more, and a ton of damage into this Rillaboom, even with that Assault Vest. This is not a +2 Goldengo or anything. That is just raw Make It Rain damage, and Wave Crash comes through for the Dondozo here. I wouldn't be surprised if this KOs, but just barely not. Rillaboom survives on 6 HP, but that more than puts it in range for this Goldengo to KO. Dondozo relatively low, probably goes down to a Grassy Glide, could be close with this Grassy Terrain and Leftovers recovery again, but Goldengo, even now at -1 from the Make It Rain, should still feel pretty good about things overall. Micro Groshans having to question whether he wants to bring his own Goldengo or Incineroar. Bring your own Goldengo in at this point is not the worst. You know that Stefan cannot go for Shadow Ball here, so you can get a super effective attack off, or at least force Stefan Mott to go for a Terastallization, play a little bit more defensively. This is an opportunity where you can try to up the tempo here. Dondozo, again, under a lot of pressure from this Rillaboom, not from Fake Out, but from Grassy Glide, and Stefan's Goldengo is also under quite a bit of threat. You do have the slower of the Goldengos, but you have the type advantage in terms of moves overall. We do see Stefan Mott go for the swap here, does not want to lose the Dondozo just yet, and Incineroar makes its way onto the battlefield. Another Intimidate onto Micro Groshan's Rillaboom here. Incineroar will be able to take the Grassy Glide absolutely fine, and Grassy Glide comes through, and yeah, absolutely fine, is able to survive it, no problem. And Stefan gets to go for another Make It Rain with Goldengo, take out the Rillaboom, do a little bit of chip damage to Michael's Goldengo, but of course, does not do all that much. Now, Micro Groshans, if we are going to see a Shadow Ball here, now is the time, especially with no Terror from Stefan Mott, but it is going to be the Nasty Plot coming through instead. So this Goldengo is now going to be at +2. That is going to be relevant. Notably, Stefan Mott can just switch out his own Goldengo at this point, or even go for the Terastallization still. There's even a world where you maybe swap in the Dondozo, and then it will go down to a potential Make It Rain or a Shadow Ball, and then you can bring in your own Goldengo again. You've reset the Choice Scarf, and Micro Groshans is now going to be in a very tough spot from there on. Micro Groshans has the Incineroar in on the battlefield now, the last Pokemon of his 4, and currently it is a 4v2, but Dondozo is relatively weak. Garganackle still in the back, really not wanting to have to deal with either of these Pokemon on its own all that much. I guess it's fine against the Incineroar, but Goldengo does apply a lot of pressure to Garganackle. Now, that being said, Stefan Mott does still have plenty of defensive options and swaps the Goldengo out. I really like this play. You can guarantee that you take out Michael's Goldengo coming on the swap back in, you get Shadow Ball, and Dondozo does make its way onto the battlefield here. Stefan's Incineroar is the faster of the two, at least in this scenario, so Michael's Incineroar is not going to be moving, and Make It Rain does not KO the Dondozo from this point. Incineroar does take some amount of damage, but Goldengo now at only +1 on after that Nasty Plot. honestly, for Stefan, this kind of is a little bit annoying. I don't think it like ruins your game plan, right? But the Dondozo surviving means it's gonna go down on this next turn. If Gholdengo clicks Make It Rain again, at least most likely it's gonna go down. And Micro Groshans can get some more damage off into Stefan's Incineroar. So Dondozo going down would have guaranteed that your Gholdengo can still just make its way back out onto the battlefield, and then you can go for a Shadow Ball. You can bring Garganacl in later, deal with the Incineroar. So this makes things a little bit more annoying, but Micro Groshans does not go on the aggressive here. Instead, just going for Protect with Gholdengo. Stefan's Incineroar goes for the knockoff here. I guess that would have done a lot of damage, and the Gholdengo wouldn't have, would have made it so that Micro Groshans might not have been able to win anyways. And Michael does get to go for the knockoff into the Incineroar here, but are we just going to see a wave crash from Stefan? It is just going to be that wave crash. It is probably going to go, it is going into that Incineroar, and it does more than enough, takes it down, and the Dondozo should take itself down at this point as well. I mean, honestly, these last couple of turns, I think it was going to be pretty difficult for Micro Groshans to navigate anyways, but I don't know. You're going to have to deal with Stefan's Gholdengo making its way onto the battlefield one way or another. It's going to be faster than you. It's going to be able to go for that Shadow Ball, and now you do have the ability to Terrasilize if you are Micro Groshans, but honestly, maybe that is what you should have done on the previous turn. Go for the Terra, go for Make It Rain early, try to get the damage off, but now you're going to take a Shadow Ball. You're almost guaranteed to take damage from the Incineroar as well. You can't really invest in a Make It Rain. You know that that is not going to KO Stefan's Gholdengo, and then you would have to take potentially 2 Shadow Balls, which would guarantee you lose. Micro Groshans potentially hoping for just a critical hit at this point, goes to that Terrasalization, maybe trying to see just how much damage this Terra Water Gholdengo can take from Stefan's Gholdengo, see if you'd be able to potentially get a return KO on the next game. Shadow Ball does come through. Does Gholdengo survive? This is a not +1, not plus anything. Gholdengo does survive it, is at 34, and gets to go fire back a Shadow Ball of its own, takes out Stefan's Gholdengo here. So it does still manage to get 2 KOs, but Stefan does still have this Incineroar here. It's going to be able to go for whatever move it wants, especially with that Life Orb damage. This is going to be game number 1, going pretty cleanly to Stefan Mott. I liked the gameplay there for Stefan. I think for Michael, there were a couple of games. We saw this with Emmanuel Briganti at Frankfurt. There are times where you can play defensively with this team, where you can make those defensive pivots and defensive calls, but you have to stay a little bit more on the front foot, right? You're able to be a little bit disruptive, like if you bring in Blood Moon Ursaluna, which I kind of want to see Micro Groshans bring. I don't know if it's completely necessary, but both having access to Yawn, being able to go into Terra Electric against something like the Gholdengo, having access to a really strong special attack in Earth Power, I think is pretty relevant for this match overall. I don't know if that is what we'll see in game number 2, but I think if Micro Groshans plays a little bit more aggressively, that's going to force Stefan Mott to have to take other options that don't feel as good. A lot of the times, it feels like Micro Groshans gave Stefan Mott room to just kind of position where and how he wanted to, which that's never going to be the way that you win the game. So let's go ahead and get in to game number 2 here. Stefan Mott does change it up. We have Alolan Ninetales and the Garganacl here, and Micro Groshans leads with the same 2 Pokemon. It is Rillaboom and Sneasler here, but Stefan Mott changing it up. Grassy Terrain is here. We are going to see the Sneasler get that defense boost, and it's going to be more than the fastest thing on the field with that doubled speed off of Unburden. Now, Ninetales does have some good damage here. It does need to be wary of Close Combat plus Grassy Glide. That will do a ton of damage into it, and likely would be more than enough to take it out. Garganacl can still throw out Salt Cures. It's still a relatively strong Pokemon in this scenario, but for Stefan Mott, either a Protect on the Ninetales or potential Swap Out, I think, would be smart because it is under a lot of pressure right now. Actually, no Swap Out here. Fake Out is just going into the Ninetales, and we see the Swords Dance from Micro Groshans. We saw that on the first round. We see it again here. Sneasler trying to get as much damage as possible. Ninetales does flinch, and Garganacl gets to go for Salt Cure. So this Sneasler does set up, but it is going to be taking damage turn over turn. It's not going to be able to stay here forever. But notably, for Stefan Mott, this Ninetales has lost its Focus Sash, at least for now. The Salt Cure, again, not doing quite as much damage since Grassy Terrain is up, but it is going to slowly chip away at Micro Groshans' HP pool for all of his Pokemon if it continues to go unchecked. In the previous game, we saw Stefan Mott playing a little bit defensively with the Garganacl here. Again, the Ninetales no longer has that Focus Sash active. Another Grassy Glide plus Close Combat at this point, I think, could do more than enough damage. It's not a super effective move, Close Combat, but it is very, very strong. So for Stefan Mott, you could go for Protect on the Ninetales here, try to get a little bit more of that Grassy Terrain recovery, get back up to full HP to force Micro Groshans to double target the Ninetales again. But it doesn't look like you'll be able to get to full HP this turn. The question is, will Garganacl stay on the field? Actually, the Ninetales does not stay on the field here, not getting that extra turn of of recovery with Protect, but instead Goldengo makes its way out. So again, that close combat pressure completely mitigated, and Garganacl is instead the Pokemon going for Protect. So Stefan Mott just getting some of that incremental damage onto Sneasler here. Close combat does not affect the Goldengo. Very nice choice of moves here, and Wood Hammer into the Garganacl does nothing. I'll be honest, it is a super effective move, but I don't even know if that really would have done all that much. Garganacl is incredibly defensively bulky. Salt Cure again, getting some work done here, and now Goldengo is on the battlefield. I don't believe it is the fastest Pokemon on the field at this point. Sneasler is still incredibly fast off of that Unburden. Choice Scarf Goldengo should not be faster than it, and depends on how Michael Groshans has invested in the Sneasler. So Make It Rain is still an option. We saw just how much damage it did into Rillaboom in the previous game, and we do already have a close combat coming out of the Sneasler. If you are Stefan Mott, you could probably read another close combat coming through, which would do quite a bit of damage. But that said, that would put Sneasler at -1. I don't know if a -1 special defense Sneasler would go down to a non-choice specs, non-life orb, non-nasty plot Goldengo, but it could still do a lot of damage. We do see Stefan Mott go for the swap here, trying to preserve Garganacl for later, and I believe this is the Ninetales. Yes, this is the Alolan Ninetales coming back out onto the battlefield, and we do see the Protect from the Sneasler here. Michael Groshans again playing a little bit defensively, not being too aggressive here, and Make It Rain comes through from the Goldengo. It does not hit into the Sneasler thanks to that Protect, but it is going to go into this Rillaboom. How much is it going to do? About a little under half HP. So Rillaboom still feeling all right, going to do pretty good up against this Goldengo's -1 special attack, but Goldengo does survive the high horsepower on about a quarter of its HP. So Sneasler can probably take it down with the acrobatics at this point, but Ninetales is continuing to heal up. Where you're almost at the point for Michael Groshans where you're going to have to guaranteed go for a double attack into the Ninetales anyways to take it down. Goldengo will go down to 1 attack here. Again, potentially even that acrobatics, but will Michael Groshans try to go for that aggressive damage? Goldengo is a very strong Pokemon for Stefan Mott here. Ninetales can do a lot of work, but right now both these Pokemon are applying spread move pressure, and Blizzard from Ninetales would do a ton of damage into Rillaboom. I don't know if it would outright KO, but it would do quite a bit. Now, for this Goldengo, it is in a tough spot here. If you're Stefan Mott, I don't know if you would be willing to sacrifice it if you're willing to make the aggressive call. Michael Groshans has been making some more conservative plays here. I think it would be very aggressive for Michael Groshans to go for potential high horsepower into the Goldengo, as well as a close combat into the Ninetales. We do see the Protect from the Ninetales. This will give it another turn of Grassy Terrain recovery to get back up to preserving its Focus Sash, and Grassy Glide does go into that Protect. Where is Sneasler attacking? This should be the next Pokemon to move. It is acrobatics, and it does enough to take out the Goldengo here. So Goldengo goes down. Michael Groshans not playing a defensive option here. Notably, if Ninetales had gone for that Blizzard, that would have done a lot of work, but Stefan Mott tried to play a little bit more defensively, not wanting to risk it. Ninetales does get that Focus Sash up, but Blizzard not coming through means Rillaboom is at full HP, and this Sneasler is still feeling all right, even with this Salt Cure damage. So now Stefan Mott down a Pokemon up against this Rillaboom Sneasler lead that Michael Groshans has not had to swap out of yet. Or Stefan Mott, are we going to see that Dondozo come through again? We certainly could, and that is exactly what is here. So both of these Pokemon are, honestly, they don't have a great matchup into Sneasler and Rillaboom. Rillaboom's Wood Hammer into the Dondozo will do a ton of work, and right now this Ninetales, after a Grassy Glide as well as an Acrobatics into it, I think that's what we're going to see from Michael Groshans. That should do more than enough damage. Even the close combat potentially could do it, and this Dondozo is going to be in a little bit of a tricky spot here if it can't get like a Fissure potentially into the Rillaboom. We do see the Sneasler go for the Terastallization here. It is going to be Terra Flying, and Stefan Mott goes for the Terastallization as well. Is this going to be the Ninetales or the Dondozo? It is the Dondozo, so it is going to be going for that Terra Poison to go away from that grass weakness. That is going to be relatively important going into these next few turns. Dondozo can potentially hit Yawns, Fissures, but we see the Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom go into the Ninetales, do plenty of damage here. Acrobatics comes out. This is going to do a lot. This is the max damage Acrobatics can essentially be, and the Ninetales goes down. With no Incineroar here, this Sneasler's attack is just going to stay at +2 until Michael Groshans needs to swap out. Wave Crash comes through for the Dondozo. This is going to do a lot, and it does enough even with that +1 defense. So Sneasler does finally fall here, but it is not before Michael Groshans has taken 2 incredibly important KOs. Now, we're going to see Pokemon number 3 for Michael Groshans, but notably, this Rillaboom does still have high horsepower active. The snow falls for Stefan Mott, but I don't know if that is going to be too relevant for the rest of this game. It is only Garganacl and Dondozo left for Stefan. So high horsepower into the Dondozo is going to be big. Grassy Terrain is going to fade here right on this turn. That is honestly, I think if you're Michael Groshans, wonder if you prefer that. It means Dondozo is less bulky, and it's going to go down to fewer high horsepowers, and Garganacl makes its way on to the battlefield here. So 2 slow, tanky Pokemon, and Goldengo makes its appearance. This is going to be an important turn right here, especially if we're going into a Game 3, which I'm not going to say I'm not going to say it's locked in, but it's looking pretty close. How much damage does Make It Rain do in a neutral setting up against this Garganacl? That is a pretty big question. It could be not much. It could be a ton. Garganacl does not have the most special bulk, and it does have that berry that will boost its special defense when hit by a special attack. For Rillaboom, you like this spot overall. You can get some good damage, but Groshans actually does want to preserve it, potentially trying to set up that grassy terrain again to get some good grassy glides into the Garganacl, and Incineroar makes its way out here. Intimidate is going to be pretty big, potentially. I actually don't think it's going to matter all that much, but you do get re-up fake out pressure so that this Goldengo on the next turn can get a lot of damage out. Honestly, I think if you are Groshans, Fisher does go into the Incineroar, but Incineroar avoids it. Garganacl does go for the Salt Cure into the Goldengo. That would do a lot of extra work. This is an interesting spot, I will say. Groshans could go for the other swap here into Rillaboom, re-up the grassy terrain, and then you do have the option to go for Fake Out again on the next turn. Right now, Garganacl is in a little bit of a precarious spot, but Stefan can just go for Protect here to guarantee that it does not get hit by a Make It Rain potentially without being able to fire off an attack of its own. But we do see the Fake Out come through from the Incineroar into the Dondozo here. Dondozo will not be attacking on this turn, and Make It Rain comes through. Garganacl just barely survives here, hanging on by an absolute thread, and Dondozo down below half HP. We do see that special defense boost. I believe it is sharply. Nope, it is just the single boost to that Garganacl special defense here. I don't think that is going to matter all that much. Dondozo does flinch. Garganacl is going to get to go for Salt Cure here. This is going to do a lot of work into Goldengo. Salt Cure does more damage at the end of the turn to Steel-type Pokemon than others. Dondozo does get Leftovers recovery here, taking it back up to just below half HP here, but no grassy terrain recovery. Salt Cure doing a lot more to the Goldengo, but I don't know if that is going to be enough turn over turn, especially as Goldengo here could just swap out, but can also just go for more outright damage. Even though Goldengo is technically on a timer, I don't think that Stefan Mott can survive that long. Rillaboom makes its way out onto the battlefield here. This will also be mitigating the Salt Cure damage into Goldengo turn over turn. Again, not completely, but a little bit. We do see the Dondozo go for a Protect here. It is going to be able to recover some more HP. Garganacl could do the same as well. Again, just trying to stall out on this Salt Cure. For Groshans, honestly, this would be a phenomenal turn to go for a nasty plot if you were able to call it, but instead, just staying aggressive here, not wanting to risk it, and Make It Rain that hits either of these Pokemon is going to do plenty of work. I think Stefan Mott's here win condition is trying to just get a double protect with the Garganacl and being able to KO the Goldengo with Dondozo on this next turn, I think is the big question. But even then, I don't know if you're going to be able to do enough to close it out against Rillaboom and Incineroar. We do, again, that Salt Cure doing a ton of damage into Goldengo turn over turn. I think it's doing 40 HP a turn, almost 25% of Goldengo's health, and we are going to see a little bit more damage coming out on this next turn from at least one of these Pokemon. I doubt we're going to be able to get 2 double protects here. Dondozo fails it. Does Garganacl fail it? Garganacl does not. So Garganacl survives. Honestly, if you're Stefan Mott, I think you would have preferred it the other way around. Unless you could get some damage out with the Dondozo, which was never going to happen thanks to Fake Out here. Groshans gets to go for that Make It Rain again. It's not going to do as much damage into the Dondozo, especially since you're at -1, but it does take Dondozo down just barely into the red. And now with Grassy Glide active as well, this should be more than enough. Goldengo is just barely going to be able to survive this next Salt Cure trigger as well. So even if Stefan Mott is able to survive one more turn, even if Stefan Mott is able to survive one more turn, it just won't matter. Groshans is going to be able to get a one more attack off with this Goldengo one way or another. So Garganacl got a double protect off. It's not going to be able to get a triple, or it could potentially get a triple protect off, but that would be the end of it. You can go for Grassy Glide and Make It Rain again as this Goldengo here. Dondozo does get the protect off, but it's going to be up against an Incineroar and a Rillaboom to end things out. It just does not have the health pool or the damage or the speed to make it happen. Garganacl does not get the triple protect. Grassy Glide goes into it and takes it down without an issue. And now it's only a matter of time before this Dondozo is going to fall. It can get good recovery off of the grassy terrain and leftovers, but again, it would have to gamble on Fissures or sacrifice more of its HP pool with Wave Crash. And right now, Rillaboom is going to be able to hit it for super effective damage with high horsepower. When Incineroar comes onto the battlefield, it'll be able to go for Fake Out here, guaranteeing that Dondozo doesn't get to attack. And then it can also go for Knockoff, removing leftovers, or go for Flare Blitz, which will be a neutral damage move at this point. Salt Cure is finally going to take out the Goldengo. It did take probably a turn longer with this grassy terrain than Stefan would have been, and that might have been enough for Stefan to be able to deal with things. If Garganacl was able to survive coming into this turn, you would have forced a little bit more of a, it would have made Groshans have to be a little bit more proactive, I think, with a swap, take Goldengo out earlier, and then Incineroar move around a little bit more. Dondozo tries to go for another Protect here, but it ultimately fails. Stefan Mott just trying to see how long he can stall things out, and high horsepower cleans things up. A little bit of a tedious game too there. Dondozo, Garganacl stall really, coming through pretty clearly for Stefan Mott. I didn't mind Stefan's play overall. I think losing the Ninetales early without getting damage out on the Rillaboom was pretty big. Going for that Protect on the turn where Goldengo went down to the Acrobatics is rough. I think that was a call from Stefan Mott. I don't necessarily think that that's the most optimal play. Again, there is a world where that play turns out really, really nice, where there is a double up into the Alola Ninetales. You're able to block it. You fire off another strong attack with your Goldengo, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself for the rest of the game. But with Groshans just splitting the damage again, it feels a little bit tougher to justify that call. Coming into game number 3, I don't know if the Ninetales is going to make its way back out. Incineroar was pretty pivotal in game number 1, and Stefan Mott was really feeling it not being there, was really missing it in game number 2. So game number 3, let's see what adjustments get made. It is going to be the Incineroar and Scyther here. I'm very excited to see this. And Groshans instead bringing Incineroar with the Sneasler instead of the Rillaboom. So notably, Grassy Seed has not triggered here. So that is not a +1 defense to Sneasler, and Unburden is not triggered. So its speed is not doubled. I have no idea how fast Scyther is compared to Sneasler. I do not know my speed tiers for Scyther, and for that I apologize. We do know, I believe, we saw this in game number 1, that Incineroar for Stefan is faster than Michael. And honestly, I did not pay attention to how those Intimidates proc. That would tell us which one is faster, but that might guarantee that Stefan can get off a Fake Out with his own Incin. And notably, this Scyther has good damage. Dual Wing Beat into Sneasler could do quite a bit. So Sneasler does go for Protect here for Michael. I think that's pretty notable. Which Pokemon is going to go for Fake Out first? Stefan's Incineroar does indeed outpace Michael's, and now Scyther gets to go for a U-turn. Doesn't do all that much damage into Incin, but does give Stefan the ability to pivot into Pokemon number 3 a little bit proactively. Able to call that Protect on the Sneasler. I think that is a relatively smart or safe play for Michael. You go for the Protect on the Sneasler. You know your Incineroar is a little bit slower, but you also know that it's pretty tanky. Now, however, Stefan Mott brings in the Dondozo. We know this thing can take close combat absolutely no problem, and Wave Crash does a ton of damage into Incin. Stefan Mott now also has the ability to go for a potential U-turn again, go for a potential knockoff or a Flare Blitz for the Incineroar. So right now, Stefan Mott has a lot of options, and Groshans need to be very careful how he navigates these next few turns. Parting Shot is an option. Getting leftovers off the Dondozo could definitely be a pretty big priority. And if you want Incineroar to be a little bit more prone to going down to a Goldengo, getting a knockoff onto the imposing Incineroar could be big. At the same time, I think this is a good spot for Stefan to swap out the Incineroar, so you might want to try to target that down if you are Michael. The problem becomes, will this Dondozo just do too much damage to you? We do see Michael want to swap out the Incin though, and Rillaboom makes its way on to the battlefield. This will give Sneasler a defensive boost as well as double its speed with Unburden and make Acrobatics twice as strong. For Stefan, are we going to see a swap though? Actually, we shouldn't see a swap. Incineroar for Michael should have been one of the slowest things in the field. Close combat does come through for the Sneasler, but does not do enough damage to the Incineroar. That -1, putting in a lot of work for Stefan Mott here. Knockoff does come through, goes into the Rillaboom, does about a quarter of its HP, and gets rid of the Assault Vest. That could be relevant if Stefan brought his own Goldengo. We do see the Yawn now from the Dondozo into the Sneasler. That will likely force it to swap out going into this next turn. If you're Michael, I don't think you're too mad about that. You haven't set up the Swords Dance on it, and bringing in Incineroar into this spot doesn't feel like the worst. Dondozo and Incineroar for Stefan are both physical attackers. So you can also, you're likely going to be able to trigger your Citrus Berry if either of these Pokemon attack into the Incineroar. And right now, you have fake out pressure active for the Rillaboom. You could fake out into the Dondozo to guarantee you're not getting much damage, or that no damage is coming out of that slot on this turn, but this is a reasonable spot for Stefan Mott to either terastallize or protect. Incineroar is still a little bit, vulnerable for Stefan Mott here, so a fake out there could be pretty nice. We do see Michael swap in his own Incineroar, take the Sneasler out, get rid of that Yawn status, and then Intimidate comes through. The question now becomes, how much damage is Stefan Mott going to be able to do? We do see the swap out for the Dondozo, so again, relatively guaranteed that no damage is coming out of this slot here, and Scyther once again makes its way onto the battlefield, but this time it does not come out onto the battlefield at the same time as the same time as Groshans Incineroar for Intimidate, and Stefan Mott goes for U-turn on the Incin. Incin gonna swap out. Are we gonna see Dondozo make its way onto the battlefield again? Indeed, we will. So even if Incineroar did get hit by fake out here, it's gonna be the high horsepower into the Dondozo. That does a little bit more damage, but I don't think it's going to be enough. There is gonna be leftovers and grassy terrain recovery here, and notably, this gets rid of the Intimidate on the Dondozo while putting it back on the field. So Stefan Mott continuing to get some chip damage out onto Michael Groshans' Pokemon. This is gonna be a slow and steady chip battle for Stefan, and for Michael Groshans, getting big damage out is the name of the game. Right now, Rillaboom, though, doesn't really want to deal with Scyther. It doesn't really want to take another U-turn. Incineroar can put some good work into it, but at the same time, it is pressured by Dondozo. Sneasler swapping into either of these Pokemon here does feel pretty rough. It takes super effective flying type damage from the Scyther into the Rillaboom slot, and it doesn't really want to take a Wave Crash into the Incineroar slot. Right now, Stefan Mott definitely feels like he is on the front foot and can get some good damage out on this turn. This could be another opportunity for him to go ahead and pivot, anticipating a swap here by Michael Groshans. If you swap with the Dondozo for Stefan, then you get to bring in the Incineroar, make sure you get another -1 on both of your Pokemon, and it's probably going to be relatively safe. Dondozo is a very, very bulky target. We do see the Sneasler come in for the Rillaboom here, so again, if there is that dual Wing Beat going into that slot, it's going to feel tough. Stefan does swap out the Dondozo here. Incineroar might be coming in at this point. It is going to be the Incineroar, and we could honestly see another U-turn from the Scyther here to bring the Dondozo back in one more time. Intimidate comes through for Stefan. Incineroar's attack for Michael going down one more time here, and we are going to see the Terastallization. I believe this is Michael Groshans here going for the Terra on the Incineroar. It is now Terra Ghost, notably, so it does not take super effective close combat damage from the Scyther, but I don't even know if that is what Scyther is going to necessarily go for here. Again, I think U-turn or dual Wing Beat could both be better. Dual Wing Beat does go into the Sneasler, and that does a ton of damage just on the first hit. Sneasler goes down to that second dual Wing Beat. One hit KO, technically a 2-hit KO, very technically, but a 1-hit KO, all things considered. Now, Michael Groshans is going to have to worry about what this Rillaboom is going to do. Flare Blitz comes through, this is going to do a lot of damage into the Scyther, but it takes it incredibly well with that Eviolite. Who knew Scyther was so bulky? Certainly not me. I'll be entirely honest. So Incineroar gets a little bit more HP restoration from that point, and now Michael Groshans has some questions he has to consider. Rillaboom makes its way onto the battlefield here. Fake out pressure once again alive and well, but Stefan can go for a Flare Blitz of his own. That Rillaboom slot is still very, very vulnerable to both of the attacking moves that Stefan can throw out right now. Sneasler, again, U-turn still available, dual Wing Beat still available, and again, that Rillaboom is under a lot of pressure. It is forced to swap out, and Goldango makes its way back out onto the battlefield, but even with Goldango coming in, dual Wing Beat comes through. That does, okay, I was about to say, that was a lot of damage to Goldango. So it takes Goldango down to about 2/3 HP, not very effective overall, but Flare Blitz or Knockoff from Incineroar for Stefan Mott is going to do a ton of work, especially into this Ghost-type Incineroar from Michael Groshans. That Incineroar goes down, and Stefan Mott just absolutely cleaning house with Scyther and Incineroar here. This is incredible, incredible work. That does get rid of the Incineroar Citrus Berry as well. Not that it matters too much. Rillaboom is going to make its way back out onto the battlefield, but notably Grassy Terrain is, I believe, going to be ending either on this turn or the next. So Rillaboom not even going to be able to get a Grassy Glide off after this turn. Stefan Mott does have the slower Pokemon here, I believe. So Scyther is going to be, Scyther and Incineroar are both under a lot of pressure, but Dondozo is in the back, and we still haven't seen Pokemon number 4. Stefan Mott could go for another swap out here for the Incineroar. We know Dondozo can tank these things rather effectively, and then Incineroar can come in with Fake Out pressure, with Flare Blitz pressure as well. This game isn't over for Michael Groshans. You can still be pretty proactive here. Honestly, I don't think Rillaboom can... Wow. Okay, I don't think Rillaboom can afford going for Fake Out here. Michael Groshans says the same, and so does Stefan Mott, just going for the dual Wing Beat again on this Scyther, doing so much damage. And now Goldango is left on its own here. It's just Make It Rains and Shadow Balls. As long as it can go for Make It Rain, does not do a lot of damage into the Incineroar. It takes out the Scyther, who absolutely did its job here, taking two clean KOs on Sneasel and Rillaboom. But now Stefan Mott's Incineroar can absolutely clean things up here. Flare Blitz coming out. This can do more than enough damage. Goldengo goes down, and Stefan Mott continuing his winning ways in round number 1 here of Pittsburgh. Whoop. That is a very fun matchup to watch. Who knew that Scyther could be so effective? That Eviolite really providing a very nice defensive boost, making it incredibly tanky even against super effective damage, and that dual wing beat doing so much work. That's a very fun thing to see. In Frankfurt, we saw a lot of Pokemon that were kind of these weird one-off picks that felt like they were trying to throw the opponent off guard, and Scyther once again feels like that. It feels like the second time through in Regulation H, throwing the opponent off guard is one of the most effective strategies that you can have. So we'll keep going with these reviews, with this analysis for Pittsburgh for the next couple of weeks, because we have a little while until the next regional championship. So until next time, y'all, be safe, be smart, make wise decisions, and farewell.